Good morning. On behalf of Mohegan Sun, I'd like to welcome all of you today. Thank you for coming out. I wanted to start off by clarifying a common perception. If you watch TV, right, there's probably assume if you work in IT in a casino, you are surrounded by beautiful people and glitz and glamour. I just wanted to clarify that is in fact absolutely true. So you're standing in one of the most beautiful destination properties in the U.S. today. I know we're here for work. I'm glad you're able to get away and as an IT practitioner take a break from your next deliverable or deadline and come out and network. I hope at the end of the day that you get a chance to see what Mohegan Sun is. If you're a gamer or a foodie or a shopper or an entertainment seeker or a sports fanatic, we have something for everyone. So please, at the end of the day today, make sure you get a chance to walk around and you'll see the new Avatar slot machines, and there's a bunch of interesting Avatar, if you're a movie buff, props out there. So before we hear from the morning keynoter, I'd like to go through today's program with you briefly. We have 9 topical panels, presentations today for which we've assembled an impressive group of presenters to inform you and update you on IT issues that face you and your organizations. At this point, I want to introduce our morning keynoter, Jill Singer. Just a bit about Jill. Jill Tummler Singer is an executive leader with 27 years of federal support in the areas of transformation, strategy, leadership, and technology. She is currently a partner at Deepwater Point, a business development and management consulting firm in McLean, Virginia, that helps companies navigate the public sector market and assist with winning federal government contracts. Prior to joining Deepwater Point, Ms. Singer served as a Chief Information Officer for the National Reconnaissance Office, part of the National Foreign Intelligence Program. Her previous position was as a Deputy CIO for the Central Intelligence Agency. She served in several additional senior leadership positions within the federal government, including as Director of Diplomatic Telecommunications Service, U.S. Department of State, and as Chief Systems Engineering Architecture and Planning for the and as Chief of Systems Engineering Architecture Planning for the Central Intelligence Agency's Global Infrastructure Organization. She held industry positions with Science Applications International Corporation, GE Aerospace, and IBM. Ms. Singer holds a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science and a Master's of Science in Systems Analysis from the University of West Florida. She has received numerous awards, including Cloud Now's Lifetime Achievement in Information Technology Legacy Award, Top 10 Global Breakaway CIO, Top 10 Women in Cloud, 10 Most Powerful Women in Federal Technology, CIA Mentor of the Year, CIO Executive Council Ones to Watch, and CIO Magazine's Standout Award for Collaboration and Influence. Ms. Singer is an accomplished speaker and published author. With that, let me invite Jill to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Quick mic check, can you all hear? I probably should have encouraged you earlier on to take the seats in the front. There are a couple of slides in the presentation today that might not be as clear to you farther in the back, but we'll make sure that you have the presentation available after we're finished with the session. Before we get into the content, I want to thank the Connecticut Technology Council for the invitation to speak to you all today. It's my first trip to Mohegan Sun, and I agree that it is a fabulous location and a fabulous setting, and I look forward to spending the time here today. So thanks. There's a lot in that introduction, and we probably should have shortened it, but I think the key takeaways are, if you count education, and you go just decade by decade, I'm now in my 4th decade of information technology, having gone to university in the 80s, and then being in the 90s, the 2000s, and now we're in the 2010s, and yes, I'm getting older. But what I want to share with you today are some of my thoughts on how you can use the top technologies on any CIO's mind to actually help you with cybersecurity. So we'll walk through a bunch of content today. I'll try to leave some time for questions, although I must admit I meant to bring my phone up here so I could check my time. I think we have about 45 minutes, so we'll do what we can. Let me start by level setting what I view as today's environment, and you can see the tagline on the bottom of the slide. There is still potential for it to erupt. Thank you. That way I can just make sure I know where we are. We learned a couple of years ago in particular that if we thought our economy was isolated, it absolutely is not. When the market started crashing here and across the world, we were impacted, and that is still the case today. We are part of a much larger economy, and we have to be careful about our actions and the actions of others and how they will affect our environment and how they will affect our business environment. The budget for the federal, if any of you watched, the amazing amount of absolute progress by the Hill in October. Good, you realize that is a joke. If you thought that that was fun, we're going to get a rerun in January. The only hope that we have as a nation is that some real leadership will stand up and actually decide on a budget. We're right now in what looks like it's not as bad as the 1990s, when in the intelligence community in particular, our budgets took a nosedive. As the Berlin Wall came down, and as everyone thought, oh, well, your job was really to just fight the communist war, and now that's over, so we've won, you don't need any money. Same thing is happening right now with after 9/11 and the global war on terrorism and the war with Iraq, and the overseas presence that the United States has. It's drawing down significantly. That's affecting budgets in the IC, but all the rest of the budgets are also being affected by the lovely word sequestration. So again, round 2 coming in January. I hope that it is a short round, and I hope that real leadership stands up to take care of that one. A lot of global hotspots, and sometimes they're natural hotspots, like what we're unfortunately dealing with in the Philippines right now, but oftentimes they're economic hotspots, and that will continue to have an impact. You know what's amazing, I'll show you some statistics that many of you may already know about the world's ability to create data today. It is absolutely nothing short of staggering. It is phenomenal to me as I look at what we're able to do. I am not going to tell you that all the data we create is worth it, because it's not. And finding out what's really worth it to your business, what's really worth it to your life, is equally important as knowing that the data just simply exists. And then the last point for all of us on this slide is that cyber events are escalating. Have you guys heard of CryptoLocker? Some of you have heard of CryptoLocker. Scary, slightly ingenious, and aimed at locking up your business documents until you pay the equivalent of a ransom fee. It is extortion. And making sure that you're protected from that, and they'll just go business by business and collect $300. Well, that's really easy to collect a lot more money than selling off a credit card for a penny with something like CryptoLocker, and that's the latest one that's out there. So for a CIO, which many of you, I'm sure in this room are CIOs or work very closely with a CIO or were a CIO, you feel a lot of pressure. And your companies, whether you're in government or whether you're in industry, whether you're in academia, they're expecting a lot from their CIOs today. They want you to absolutely drive a competitive advantage. You don't exist just to be the head of the infrastructure that makes sure that things keep running. We've probably already outsourced that. They really are looking at you to be the Chief Innovation Officer and not just the Chief Information Officer. And they want you as part of the business. They want to know that the things that they're doing, the things that are being done in IT are actually driving some kind of economic advantage to that particular business. Unless you're in a growth industry, you're also being asked to do all those things with fewer dollars. Fortunately for us, some of the technology pricing has come down. Unfortunately for us, we still want to innovate, and that usually is at a bigger price tag. And so finding a way to keep moving forward and having enough of your percentage of money that you can put on transformation and ensuring that a smaller percentage of your money is on ops and maintenance is absolutely critical to a CIO today, and that's a hard balance. If you're still in an environment where you're spending 70 to 75% of your IT dollars on O&M, it's going to be difficult to to move to a transformative future and to really be that chief innovation officer instead. You know, I've used the word hyperproductivity here, and it's almost like going from Homo sapien to Homo superior. We really do want to achieve through IT a sense of hyperproductivity. And that doesn't just mean that how many of you are working right now or have been doing work while you're in this room, or how many of you worked last night, how many of you will work over the weekend. Maybe you can work from home, but you'll still be doing more than email, actually more significant and more substantive work over the weekend. And so that is not really hyperproductivity, that's just more hours, right? You're just working more hours, but you're not significantly faster or better at the work. And so they're looking for information technology to find significantly better ways so that increases in the productivity are substantial, not just marginal, but are substantial. And then finally, I'll just skip on the bottom of this slide. I get the sense, and I don't know if you do as well, that leadership, business leadership, actually thinks that as a CIO you can guarantee their digital security. That you will be so smart and so ahead of the next hacker and so ahead of the next hacker group that they will never be the victim of crypto locker. That's what they want, guaranteed digital security. It's probably impossible, but nonetheless that's what they're looking for from a CIO today. So there are 4 of these technologies that, sorry that was a little fast, we'll just skip it. 4 technologies that are on every CIO's mind. You know them as well as I do. It's cloud, it's mobility, it's big data, it's cyber. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of a few of those technologies, and then we'll link them all together and how they can work to support a better cybersecurity footprint so you have a greater chance of guaranteeing the digital security that your company is looking for. You know what? 6 years. One of the biggest takeaways from this slide is that it's only 6 years from the time the term was coined to today in cloud computing. It was not a term until 2007. And now here it is in 2013, and it's almost a household name. Even your parents and your grandparents have some slight notion that when they're getting data off of their mobile phone, it's coming from some cloud-like place. They probably don't know the layers of the cloud. They don't know IaaS from PaaS from SaaS, but they know something that this cloud term exists. And that's scant. 6 years is all it took for us to do that. In the beginning, if you're in IT, and if you're in IT infrastructure, you probably went back. I don't want this cloud thing. I want to hug my server. I like my server. I want it right here next to me. When it breaks, I can see that it's broken for real. When it's cold, I can get next to it and it's warm, and so forth. We certainly experienced that in the intelligence community. Where one of the hardest environments for us to crack with cloud were the infrastructure server administrators themselves. We also found that in the beginning, we relegated the use of virtualization or cloud-like technologies to non-mission critical capabilities. Just sort of the easy stuff for business. It was okay if it didn't work as well. We'd take a risk on that, but we would never take a risk on the command and control of a satellite. I'm sure the same thing happened to you. By 2010, we found that it was indeed a game changer. We found that cloud actually allowed a lot of new companies in all industries to pop up because they could virtually spend pennies on an infrastructure. And it was truly game-changing. Most notably, you'll think of Amazon Web Services in terms of the ability to just swipe a credit card. And now all of a sudden, a smart group of guys, they don't even need a garage. They just need a laptop and a Starbucks. And they have access to all of this infrastructure capability for pennies on the dollar, where they can build something and sell it off. And that was a new form of innovation for the nation, probably for the world. What's even better for all of us, if you use it well, we don't use it so well in the federal space, but if you use it well, and you're really out there in the public cloud infrastructure, you can scale up and scale down, and you can share your resources across the globe so that when you need them at normal business times here, you have them. And if it's nighttime and you don't need them, and that's the way your business works, you can share them with another part of the globe, and you only pay for what you need, what you use. That is phenomenally different than what we had in our first few generations from an IT architecture and from IT compute platforms. A couple other things about cloud. I'm sure you all keep up with the Gartner hype cycles. I'll just walk you through. Remember, I said it's just 6 years that the term was introduced. For Gartner, it first popped up on their hype cycle in 2008 with just the term cloud. By 2009, it hit that peak of inflated expectations, which we've all come to know and love. By 2010, it was split into private cloud and public cloud to demonstrate that if your industry or your company was large enough, they might do cloud on their own and behind a set of firewalls. I'll use that loosely, but in sort of a private space as opposed to a public. You could think of it as on-prem and off-prem clouds as well. And then in 2011, they were sort of still right up there at the top together. Here we go. This is the latest data from Gartner. The cloud chart has lots of technologies on it, but the bottom line of the latest data from Gartner is that we're headed to that trough of disillusionment for cloud. Your IT professionals, don't let your business leaders get hung up on that. So maybe it didn't save 90% of the money that you told them it would a few years ago. It saved something. Or it allowed you to repurpose your resources, right? It allowed you to put applications online a lot faster. It allowed you to test over a weekend really quickly and cheaply. Again, it might not have met everything you swore to them that it would do for them a few years ago, but it's done a whole lot. So it'll be your job to help your organization get through that trough. A couple other things about cloud. I think we all would agree that it isn't a fad. It's amazing to me that I still run into people, usually on the business side, who still don't like this cloud computing thing because they see it as quite fuzzy. Not the case. I think we all view it as very real, as currently, depending on how you count generations, the 4th or the 5th generation of the computing architecture, and certainly here to stay. You can use cloud to respond to whatever business drivers you have. Pick a cloud environment. If PUE is killing you, we'll go get a cloud in another part of the country on another kind of power grid with another source of power and bring that down or put more density in there, buy new equipment and meet those responses. If you're in an environment where OpEx is all you have, you can buy a cloud. If you're in an environment with CapEx is all you have, you can buy a cloud. It sort of has taken away those ledger distinguishers between your operating capital, your operating expenditure and your capital expenditures, and it's very creative to get it however you need it. That's especially important in the federal space if you have a color of money, where you can only spend development money on one thing and operation money on another. Doesn't matter. Your cloud provider is going to find a way to respond to your needs. And for your clients, for those of you who are working, you don't have to be near your mothership's compute and storage environment at all with cloud. You can get access to all the data and all the applications that you need as long as your implementation of the cloud has been properly done. It's widely viewed as more secure. Right now, General Keith Alexander, you know that name, who runs the National Security Agency, he's certainly in the news for something else. But probably 2 years ago, he was really notable in the news for coming out as the head of national security for this country and saying that he believed that the cloud platform was more secure. And the reason that he believed that, and we all as CIOs in the federal space and in the intelligence community in particular, supported him, and we had a study done by security and counterintelligence professionals to confirm it. When you have a simplified infrastructure, and when you have consistency across your infrastructure, we could roll out patches so fast, it was amazing. Previously, we would be engineering a patch for a really long time. We'd be running around patching all these very unique environments and finding that we had to re-engineer the patch probably dozens and dozens of times because the environment we went to was just a little bit different and the patch wouldn't work just exactly the same way. But with cloud, we found that we could find a patch, engineer a patch, roll a patch out, and be more confident that the environment was indeed secure. Standards are good. So let's move to what's on a CIO's mind, topic number 2, which is mobility. I know you guys have a whole bunch of sessions on mobility, so I'm going to hit just a few highlights here. We've covered that the office is everywhere, and the office is anywhere. I have almost my entire career was spent in the top secret environment. It's nice to be a consultant now because I get to experience this for the first time, really, in my professional career. that it's okay, no one cares if I'm in my pajamas and my Uggs and I'm sitting at my kitchen table, and I can do actual work. Prior to that, I would have to get dressed, drive myself to a facility, go in, get the door open, make sure the security guard knew I was there, and then log on to a high-side environment and do my work. So it's, I used to be jealous, and now I'm happy that I can actually participate here. Employee access, I've mentioned the applications and the data both from a cloud perspective, but now I'll mention it from a mobility perspective. They need access to everything that they would get in a home office or in the fixed facility while they're not in a fixed facility. I think that leads to some interesting trends. I don't know about you guys, but I could put my readers on so I could do an age verification. I can't see so much on this screen, especially when it comes to something other than email. And so I think we'll see an increasing trend, not in your phone that begins to look like a brick in a different way. Remember those brick phones? But in the screen size that is more adaptable to employee productivity and employee work. MDM, absolutely critical, but it's not just where is a device. It really is what's on the device, who's using that device, can I make sure that it's my user using that device, do I have the right authentication in my mobile device management, and am I confident that I'm not losing intellectual property? Am I confident that I'm protecting privacy and civil liberties? Am I confident that if someone does lose that phone, that I know where it was last through either pinging or some other method, and I can shut it down, wipe it off, wipe it out, and not be the next one on the front page of the paper because we lost a whole bunch of employee data or customer data on the phone. And it does represent a significant increase to your attack surface. Significant increase. A few years ago, we did not hear of iOS attacks. We certainly didn't hear Android attacks. They were like the Linux of the data center era. But now we hear about them all the time, and they will increase because hackers go after the most common platform. Windows has been the most common platform forever, and that's changing. And so we will see increased attacks to the OS on this device, or whatever size device you have. A couple of things that I think we'll also see in the future. Goldman Sachs is one example of a company that has privately built, using their own code, it's not something that they bought, a container for their employees' mobile phones. When we started down the mobility path, you probably, or your companies probably had really draconian policies about mobility. You know, sign your life away. If something happens to the business things on your phone, we're going to wipe your phone clean, we're going to clear all your contacts, we're going to delete all your pictures, et cetera, et cetera. And employees actually accepted that, erroneously accepted that. Now we're moving into an environment where an employee says, that's not good enough for me anymore. This phone is my life. And you actually cannot take all my contacts, all my pictures, all my other stuff, all my apps, all my everything, if there is a business compromise. And so companies like Goldman are building really tight, really secure containers that they will put on your phones, and that's where your business work is done. Complete separation from the other things on your phone. It gives more protection to you and more protection to their actual clients. It is an enterprise capability now, and I'm sure that all your organizations understand this. What's changed is how many BlackBerries are in this room? How many corporate BlackBerries are in this room? Okay, don't be afraid to admit it. We at least had one hand go up. Maybe a few of you are afraid to admit it. BlackBerry was an awesome capability, and we'll see it again in the future in some other way. The intelligence community in particular loved BlackBerry. FBI loves BlackBerry because of their enterprise server and the security capabilities. But the enterprise focus was what made BlackBerry so incredibly popular in addition to the security features. Companies are recognizing now that they need the same kind of enterprise focus, whether they give you the device, which they did with BlackBerries, or whether you bring your own device, which they're more likely to rely upon. Why should they buy you a phone when all of us carry one anyway? They just want to find a way for that enterprise, for that device to work well and to work nicely on their enterprise environment. I think Ultrabooks, it's just my prediction, are where we'll end up. a screen that looks like 10 to 13 inches, something that has a real keyboard that you actually can do like this. Whether it flips down, whether it attaches on or something, that's fine, but not one where you're doing this on the screen, which we've all reverted back to two-finger typing on our iPads. But something that's a little bit more like a real computer, something that runs the Office suite. I love my iPad. It's really a glorified Nook because it doesn't run the Office suite. So when I carry it, I can't build a PowerPoint off my iPad. I can't plug it in. There's no USB. It has some limitations that make it a fine personal device and make it a not so fine professional device. And so in that space, I think whatever you want to call an Ultrabook, I'm not going to carry a phone that is a 7-inch screen. I'm just not. And for men, it won't even fit in your pocket. You're not going to carry that either. So we'll find ourselves to something that we use as a mobile device for quick things, and something we can carry that weighs less than 3 pounds, but fits in our briefcase pretty nicely. And then we can do all the work we need to from that. We're not going to carry around those big MacBook Airs. We're certainly not going to carry around those big HPs with a battery this thick on the back of it. We want something streamlined and helpful for people who are my age, where you can actually see it. You'll see a convergence. Those of you who are young don't believe this. You just wait. It will happen to you too. We'll see a convergence of all of the capabilities necessary. The chart on the bottom, if you can see it, great. If you can't, we'll make sure you get it. It's from Cisco, and it's old from Cisco. I think it's probably not even correct anymore. But Cisco says that by 2016, we're turning the corner. We're going to be in 2014. So within 2 years, global network access will be at 110 exabytes per month. We're already at the point, well, just about globally, we have 5 devices per person. Pardon me. And that means how many in your household? If it's 5 per person, it's got to be 20 per household or something like that. We are going to go, in the next 10 years by predictions, from about 50 million devices to some 500 million devices or something like that. I might be wrong in that data. And then we're going to enter the world of the Internet of Things. So I suspect that Cisco's data is a little bit low at this point in time. Excuse me. So let's move to the third area. Scott, can I bother you to grab that cold form of caffeine? Thank you. Excuse me. This is really an eye chart. The data is super old. In the big data world, it's super old. It must be 2 generations old by now. And the chart actually represents the 2011 to 2012 numbers for big data. If you have not sat back to take just one moment to grasp the concept of the data that we are able to create, let me give you a couple of tidbits. The data here is every single minute of every single day. We upload 48 hours of video to YouTube, as an example. Every single hour, every single minute of every single day, we send over 100,000 tweets. I don't know that you see Snapchat on here, but that's coming. We'll see, how many Snapchats do teenagers create. We'll be up here next. And the kind of data that we're creating has significantly and dramatically changed recently. Over 90% of the new content that is created is video content. We're still trying to perfect business intelligence tools for structured and unstructured text. And now here we have 90% of the new data that is being created is video data. And remember earlier I told you that not all data is worth it? We have old data as well, probably from 2012. We have 898,000 hours of cat video for your reviewing pleasure. From a business perspective, unless you're in the pet shop business, you probably don't need to look at that. But what you do have to do is figure out what's clogging up the real data that I need to see. A machine-generated data is the next frontier. It's all that stuff that's being created by the IT department, in band and out of band, and what you do with that will be really important from a cybersecurity perspective. Need to go just a little faster here. So here's the Gartner hype cycle for big data. First put it on there in 2011. Here it is in 2012. Right at the top right now in 2013. It's a nearly identical curve to cloud. So now we have seen these terms get created and really just push through our industry at a rapid, fast pace in comparison to what we saw in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. And let's go back to that term hyperproductivity. As IT professionals, figuring out how we maintain currency with all of these new industry game changers that hit us so fast is a difficult challenge on the people side. Quick, Federal CIO Survey. I know it doesn't mirror industry completely. Pick out just a couple points here. This is just from June, so it's very recent data from Meritalk and Tech America, who are big surveyors in the federal space. At that point, federal CIOs said that they would spend 16% of their IT budget, or $13 billion, on big data by 2018. And they said that they expected to save 14% of the overall agency budget by using big data technologies, and that would be $500 billion by 2018 that they would save. Let's compare those to some cloud predictions by Forrester in 2010. In 2010, Forrester said we'd only spend $241 billion on cloud by the year 2020. So when you look at big data, it is so much bigger in number, and so much bigger in potential savings, and so much bigger in possible exploitation by IT in comparison to cloud. It's truly phenomenal. So let's move to the fourth area that's on a CIO's mind, and it's probably last but not least when you think of cybersecurity. I'm sure you all do this. Coming out of a classified space, it is about defense in depth over and over and over again. We start with gates and guards and guns and locks and badges and reader access to a room and so forth. Just the physical components of security that are absolutely required to have a good, solid IT security and cybersecurity approach. Do not underestimate how good gates, guns, guards, locks, badges, and readers are for doing your job. You have to combine the defense in depth with things that focus on your people, things that focus on your technology, and things that actually focus on your process. All three areas need to be covered for solid cybersecurity. I believe that it is no longer sufficient to have encryption in transit, encryption as your data is moving across whatever network environment transport service you have, but that you also need encryption at rest. So wherever your data is sitting at rest, it should be encrypted so that no one, if they do grab it, either physically or grab it virtually, they can't do anything with it. And then finally, the newest trend will be encryption in view. There are some cool technologies out there. Oculus Labs is one of them that actually has one of their products when it knows my facial features. And when I am looking at the screen and it knows it's me, it's going to show me a Word document relatively clearly. But the minute that someone comes over my shoulder, it won't show them that document clearly. It blurs the part of that. So all they see is sort of blurry stuff, and it makes no sense. Another activity that Oculus Labs has going on is the ability from a counterintelligence perspective to poke back through the camera to make sure that the person who just logged in with the credentials that they're supposed to have is indeed the physical being that they expect to see. Again, based on facial recognition and facial features. So really awesome stuff coming for encryption in view while you're looking at it. If you've done a big migration of applications from an on-prem legacy environment to either an on or off-prem cloud environment, and you did it really well and you took the time to do it and it was hard, you have noticed that your applications are your greatest vulnerability right now. That's where all the holes are in security, so you have to shore those up. And then, if you think insider threat only applies to Snowden and the federal government, you're way wrong. Insider threat is in all of your environments. And creating your own counterintelligence programs that recognize when you have bad employees purposely doing bad things, and you can stop that before they give away the keys to your kingdom is necessary. And don't forget that sometimes something bad will happen, and it's just an innocently ignorant employee. They didn't mean for it to happen. Moving on, Verizon every year does a data breach investigations report. You can download it off the internet. I would strongly encourage you to go ahead and download that off the internet. Key points from this slide are the origin of attack and the motivation for the attack are usually different. In this slide, it shows you that China is the largest attacker by origin, but their motivation is espionage. The second largest on this slide is Romania by origin, and their motivation is financial. So depending on your industry, don't think that an espionage attack won't happen to you if you're part of the critical infrastructure for the nation or you're part of the defense industrial base. And don't think financial won't happen to you if you're part of defense. They're going to do both. However, still today, 95% of the successful attacks are simple and dumb, and it's phishing. So back to your employees and the innocently ignorant, teaching them how to recognize a phishing attack is critical. The number 210 is the average number of days it takes for a company to recognize that they've been breached. That's too long. By the time, if you let it sit in there for 210 days, your cleanup, Mandy will love you. Bring them in, they'll clean you up, they'll charge you millions of dollars or pick your next service to clean it up, because 210 days is a lot of time for havoc and damage to be caused on your infrastructure. So all these things that are happening, how can you use them to actually make your company safer? Or can you use them to make your company safer? Obviously, I think the answer is yes. So let's walk through a few of those. There's a paper that was done for AFSIA, which is a liaison nonprofit between government and industry, mostly in the defense space, where we looked at cloud and mobility insights. And some of the things that were found in that paper are that you have so many new and more sensor points through cloud and through mobility that you should take advantage of for a cyber footprint. Every time that phone connects to your environment, whether it's connecting by satellite, by terrestrial, or by a cellular network, is a chance for you to know where is that phone, what credentials did they use to bring that phone into my environment, what's happening in the environment where that phone is, how do I use that to make it more secure, give them access to some things and not others. Similarly, in your routers, your switches, your firewalls, your load balancers, and everything else, more opportunities just to create a whole bunch of data about the security of your environment. It's generally out-of-band data that you're running across a different network, but it's all there for you to pick up. The point here is that there's an endless amount of sensor data that you can get your hands on. Now, what good is an endless amount of sensor data if you don't actually know what to do with it? And there are some solutions for what to do with it. If you never looked at machine-generated data, the back plane is actually what it can look like. Not really something that humans read really fast. And it comes from all of these sources. It comes from your industrial control systems and your SCADA systems. It comes from your applications. It comes from the cameras that you're using, assuming you have IP your cameras or you've digitized the footage from your cameras and you can push it in there. It comes from your databases. It comes from your ARC sites or whatever you're using to run around your network. It comes from your OpenView. It comes from BMC Patrol and all of those things, and it's just generating massive amounts of data. The amount of big data we've created in video and so forth is tiny in comparison to the machine-generated data that we've been creating, and now we have the ability to do something with that machine-generated data. And here's what you can do with it. This is an example from Splunk. If you don't know Splunk, many of you probably do, I'd encourage you to learn a little bit about that company, and others like it, that go a step beyond a traditional scene. And what they can do is take all of that machine-generated data from all of the sources that are there. This slide represents online services, GPS location, desktops, networks, telecom, shopping carts, clickstreams, web blogs, you name it, and it's collecting up all of that data. And what it does, you need that on a cloud, right? You need the flexible infrastructure of a cloud. You're not going to keep the data forever, but you need to be able to keep it long enough to process it, and that is a helpful part of cloud. And then you need to lay on top of it big data tools that you would normally probably give to your financial analysts or your intelligence analysts or your business side people. Turn them on the IT department itself and put those business analytics and those BI tools on top of the IT department so that you will see things in that data that respond to your cybersecurity. You'll also, in the process of combining your cloud infrastructure with your big data tools and your machine-generated data, you will learn more about your IT operations than you ever did in the past. This is beyond a mom or a super mom. when it comes to the manager of managers in your environment. This is taking all of those sensor data points and being able to say, this sensor data point means I'm about to be attacked, or this sensor data point means that I've already been attacked, or I have a vulnerability here, or my performance is bad not because I'm being attacked, my performance is bad because I have an old software, an old OS, and that company sent me a patch for improved performance and I haven't put it down. Until you have an infrastructure that can stand up and down quickly and be affordable, like cloud, and until you turn the BI tools on your IT department, you'll be operating mostly in the dark, or mostly off of antiquated tools that see only a portion of your infrastructure and don't give you access to the whole of the infrastructure. Another way that you can drive better security insights that happens when you understand this machine-generated data and this out-of-band data and you put it on the right infrastructure is you can create scenarios of normal behavior. And what looks like normal for your users? What do you expect your users to access? What do you expect your users to touch? What is not usual for them to touch? What's an abnormal pattern and what's an abnormal piece of information? And from that, once you know what looks like normal, it has to be flexible and kind of broad because a user that used to be in HR department might now be in the finance department and needs to go at different containers. But once you know what normal looks like, then in stream, you can figure out what abnormal behavior is and you can stop it right as it occurs. Or you can put it over, I would say quarantine it, that might not be the right way, but you can put it in a different bucket for later forensics, after the fact forensics. Your choice based on the risk posture of your particular environment. And then finally, on the total achievement of results, we all know now that company by company, organization by organization, institution by institution, is not a matter of if I'll be attacked. It's purely a matter of when, and perhaps a matter of how badly. But it certainly is going to happen to all of us, and so you need to put as much money, as much attention, as much software, and as much hardware on your cybersecurity footprint as your risk posture demands. That's a corporate conversation for a CIO to have with the company. If the company wants to bring your budget down to as tiny amount as possible, change the conversation to be about how much is cybersecurity worth to you? What would a scenario be that would cause us to lose our corporate stature, that would cause our customers to lose faith in us, that would cause our partners to lose faith in us? And that's the kind of money you should be spending on cybersecurity to create the right risk posture. You know what? You probably have awesome cybersecurity professionals. They're really in high demand, and they are commanding very high salaries, and there aren't enough of them. If you have them, love them. Give them more training. Do everything you can to keep them. School them up. If they want to go out to training for 30 days a year, pay it. Keep them around. There are companies now who are picking up just really good, solid employees that have the right kind of professional characteristics, and they're spending a bunch of time building them into cybersecurity professionals because the university system is not spitting them out in the vast quantity that we need. And even if they come out of school with an undergraduate degree or even a graduate degree in the cybersecurity field, they're probably not ready for your environment immediately and not immediately productive. So again, the key point, love the people if you have them and make sure you keep them happy. Train your everyday employee. Remember I said 95% of the attacks are just phishing. If you can, and your lawyers agree and your leadership agrees, run a fake phishing campaign in your environment. Create an email that if someone pays just a little bit of attention, they would recognize that they shouldn't click that link. And then track the employees that do click that link. And then based on the results, up your training. Through little vignettes, through annual training, through whatever it takes to keep reminding your employees, don't click that link. And trust me, you're going to help them in their home computer use also. And then finally, there is a lot of help available. What I'm giving you here is just a couple of examples. I'm sorry, there wasn't one for the state of Connecticut. That's the only reason the state of North Carolina is there, because they were easy to find as an image. But this year's cybersecurity awareness campaign was all about Stop, Think, Connect. That goes to kids, it goes to adults, it goes to businesses, it goes to schools. And then also, I'm just giving you an example. If any of you are in the critical infrastructure industries, they're 16th of the nation. You probably know it. And there are companies like CenturyLink who, on behalf of the Department of Homeland Security, have been paid to build this awesome enhanced cybersecurity tool that uses actually classified and unclassified data for indicators. So the classified data you're never going to get unless you come through a service like this. And then you just run your network traffic through. DHS built it, spent millions to build it. DHS ensures that the classified indicators still come in on a regular basis. It's called GFI, information up there, government furnished information. And DHS helps CenturyLink maintain it. Companies have to pay CenturyLink and AT&T to actually operate it. But the big investment was done by the government. And so if you're part of the critical infrastructure, find them and take advantage of this service. If you're not part of the critical infrastructure, just be patient. Others will come up that don't have the classified data in them, but will be available to all industries in the country. And finally, no presentation will be complete without a Dilbert. So for those of you in the back, let me tell you what it says. My security software kept insisting that I download critical updates. I didn't have time to do all that, and I couldn't risk using my computer without critical updates. It was a no-win situation. The boss, did you accomplish anything this week? Employee, what part of no-win is confusing for you? So this is an environment that has trained its people that you have to take a patch, but also we all know the Dilbert environment not necessarily going to achieve hyper-productivity. So with that, I think I have used all my time and then some, for which I apologize. I'm sure we'll get it back on a short break or something. I would love to take questions, but I'm going to look to the team and tell me if I can.
Yes.
Okay, so they say we can take just a couple of questions. So thank you very much for your time, and now I turn it over to you. It's always hard to get a first question. Are you still awake?
So,
there we go.
If the training for cybersecurity is not being handled well by the universities, where would you suggest that training be applied?
Okay, the question is, if the training for cybersecurity is not being handled well by the universities, where would I suggest that you go to get the training? The universities are working rapidly hard to build solid cybersecurity degree programs. However, there is a pipeline issue and a timing issue, right? It still takes 4 years or then some to get a degree. And so even though they're building programs, they're trickling out the resources right now. So I don't want to imply that the academic institutions aren't focused on it, because they certainly are. But it just takes time to get through, to get the graduates coming out and demand that we would need. There are a lot of technical training locations, including places like ITT, that are doing specific coursework. They're not going to give you necessarily from the ground up a whole professional to do cyber, but they're great places to take an IT savvy individual and go send them for specific training. And then I would recommend there are a few institutions that do certificate programs, and they are well known in the cybersecurity field. Carnegie Mellon, Software Engineering Institute, big player in cyber, actually part of the DHS cert for the nation. Georgia Tech, another program well known in cyber. Virginia Tech, also well known in cyber, and they're popping up all over the place. I'm not as familiar with the Connecticut school to name one, but I'm sure that they're here. So please forgive me for being more familiar with the institutions that work in the DC area a little bit more. But they're there. And again, it's not necessarily a whole degree program, so it usually assumes that they have a bachelor's degree, but send them in there for their certificate programs to get the training that they need. Yes, sir?
So in the evolution of the digital underworld, right, it's this whole new trend to not only steal data, but to distort data. So what you're doing is you're creating false clicks, you're doing really distorting the data, like think of Google, okay? What do you do about that?
So the question is, the trend is both to steal data and to distort data so that you no longer have confidence in the data. And how do you control against that? There are some that believe in defensive data initiatives. Now, we're still building the technologies, a little bit of an R&D and innovation area, where at the source of generation, some of it's manpower, but at the source of generation, the data are tagged with global identifiers, global unique identifiers, that indicate that it's the original source of the data. And that tag, much in encryption manner, hangs with that data, and if it becomes manipulated, there are checksums and other rules that you could do to recognize that the data has been manipulated en route or has been manipulated in process. I would also encourage you to make sure that for your cloud providers, that you have solid contract clauses, terms and conditions on how they're storing the data, where the data is stored, and who can touch the data. Certainly from a federal perspective, we don't allow our data to be, our classified data in particular, to be at rest in a non-US country. That's not appropriate for everyone, but I would recommend that in as much as you could use something like software-defined networking to route your data to a location that you trust, that you use that, as opposed to letting it route through locations that are untrustable without, without any caveat on that. There are locations in this world where your data is untrusted. They might not manipulate it, they'll darn sure steal it. And so using software-defined networking for paths, using encryption for protection, and finding ways to tag that data where you can check the tag are suggestions. But some of it's still R&D. Okay. Yes?
In terms of guards at the door, I mean, thinking of physical security, the number I've heard is that you get about one cybersecurity person for about 2,000 employees. Have you heard anything of how much?
So the question is, in terms of guards at the door, there's a number of how many guards you need for the number of employees coming in and out, and the number that he's heard on the cybersecurity professional equivalent is about one cyber person for every 2,000 employees. I believe that 1 to 2,000 might be a good number for a really awesome server administrator or cloud administrator shop that has used a lot of processes and technologies to improve their output. I think 1 to 2,000, I don't know a standard. What do you all think? 1 to 2,000, one cybersecurity person for every 2,000 employees. Does that seem about right? Raise your hand. Does that seem too high? It should be 1 to 5,000? Does that seem too low? All right, so in this room we don't have consensus by any means, but everyone thinks that that seems too low. I would agree that that seems a little bit low right now until we have all of the technologies and the tools and the forensics faster to understand what's happening. But good question. We'll have to do some research on what the best practice is. Okay. Okay, we'll make this last question.
Yeah, the question in regards to security. What's a hacker organization you recommend to actually test your security policies and stuff? Because there's only so much you can develop your own security specialist, but it's always good to get hackers to test it, right?
So I think the question is, what ethical hacking shop would I recommend for you to use as, because I would never recommend a hacking shop, an ethical hacking shop, for you to use to help test your stuff. I don't think that I have a specific recommendation on a company or enough knowledge to endorse one over the other. Just make sure when you're talking to companies that propose that that's the service they're offering, sometimes it is a cleanup service, which is not what you're looking for. Sometimes it is a firewall, IDS, IPS, HBSS, AVE, heuristic, etc. company that just wants to layer a bunch of hardware and software as well as a bunch of butts and seats service model to help you. You're really looking for a company that you can buy by the pound to test your software when you want them. And I don't have an endorsement. Does anybody here sell that? And you want to hook up with this gentleman? Ah, there we go. It's a great question. I just don't have a company to endorse for that. I apologize. Yeah. Okay. All right.
One problem we have with that is that we actually use one, but we don't want anybody to know.
That's not uncommon. That's not uncommon. So I guess you're not willing to share with him who you use, but maybe share 5 and he won't know which one you use. All right, great. Thank you very much for your time today. I look forward to the rest of the conference.